I'm so happy to welcome Elizabeth Perlman to the Audio Garden. And of course, you joined us many times during season 3 of the Listen and Be Heard Hour. And you featured so many wonderful young women who were reading their work, which came out of your work with them, with the Intuitive Writing Project. And now that work of yours has culminated in a beautiful book called Word Magic: The Power of Writing to Reframe Your Story and Reclaim Your Intuition. Welcome to the Audio Garden.
Thank you so much, Martha. I'm so honored to be here. This is an incredible show, so thank you for having me.
Well, I'm glad you think so, and we're glad to have you here to talk more about your work. As I was saying, we heard these wonderful young women who really, were really on it about some important things about culture and society. And I wanted to find out, well, let's explore some different aspects of this, but I think I wanted to start with why, since this book culminated from this work, why was it important to you to be working with young women in particular?
Yes, that's a great question. There's a famous quote, I have it on my website and I'm going to forget the author, but they said, "We must become the person we needed when we were young." And so I have basically created the program, and I aspire to be the person that I needed when I was young, which is somebody to just create a safe space for young women, as I once was, to express themselves authentically and have their truth heard, validated, and celebrated, no matter what.
And, we're recording this a few days after the shooting of a woman in Minnesota,
Yes.
which I think many of us are still reeling from the epithet that was hurled at her after being shot. What does that have to do with women's confidence and the reasons for listening to our intuition and cultivating our intuition?
I love that you brought that up. And of course, as you know, it has everything to do with it. And it's one more knife wound in a lineage of at least 5,000 years of being called these horrible names, being silenced in so many different ways, mostly through shame. I think we've all been taught that there's something inherently bad or wrong or defective in us. I certainly absorbed it. And I've had this conversation with my girls many times when they write about these feelings of shame, and I ask them to reflect, where do you think it started? And it's so interesting. It's in the air. I feel like it's like the air we breathe, the water we swim in, and it's manifested horribly in that moment by the man who murdered her. And he said one of many horrible things that is said to womankind, and it goes in deep. I think we've been internalizing it for thousands of years. And as a result, we're all in this moment. I do believe this is happening globally. Women and girls all over the world are reclaiming their voices for the first time in thousands of years.
Wow. And why do you think that? Like, why? How is that possible now?
How is it possible now?
Mhm.
I don't
I
understand
want to
it
believe.
entirely, but I think it's a combination of a lot of different things. First of all, as much as I am sometimes want to live like an Amish person, like not have technology, I do think technology has a huge impact. I think being able to, like you and I can have this conversation from thousands of miles apart, even though we met down the road. We can hear and see women's voices all over the world. And I think it's realizing that we're not alone. I think going back to the witch hunts, you and I have talked about this in the past, that was all about divide and conquer, getting women to pit women against each other, making us feel like we're by ourselves, and that we, of course, everybody is weakened alone. But when we have solidarity, I think there's a growing movement of women realizing the power of sisterhood.
Mm.
And I mean, it hasn't we're still in the battle, but it feels like there's
It's
a
crossing
uprising.
borders, maybe.
Yes. Yeah.
Mm. Um, what was that word you just used? Oh, witch hunt. It's 2 words, actually. I just
Mhm.
have to proclaim, since you used that it really annoys me the
Mm.
way that's been co-opted
Oh, I know, I
because
know, I know.
because it just really does. Because it's like, how insulting can you get
Yeah.
talking
Yeah.
about a witch hunt
Oh my
when,
gosh. Yes.
whole villages of women were burned and otherwise dispatched with.
Yes.
Um, that's a witch hunt.
Yes. Yes. And I think a lot of people don't even really know the history. I'm sure, like you, I had to independently research it. It wasn't something I learned in college or anywhere. I had to dig around and find books and do my own research. And it's still, there is more, again, social media, thanks to millennials and Gen Zers are doing an
Well, I
incredible job.
I have to
Yeah.
interject here again.
Oh, okay.
And I don't want to take away time from
No,
talking
it's
about
all
your
right.
book, but I do believe that that was a bit of technology as well, because
Mhm.
the Gutenberg press,
Oh, true.
you could call The Witch's Hammer like the first best-selling book of all time. It
Oh,
was the
God, you're
first
right.
book. It was the first book that got spit out on that press.
Oh,
And when
God,
I
I didn't
say
even
spit
realize that.
out, I mean it's
Yeah.
like the first time books were replicated. And
Mm.
this is what they chose to replicate and hold up like it was the Bible or something, right?
Yeah, that's right. Right. Well,
And
that was the first one. It was the Bible,
and
and
then
then the
and
witch.
that fueled the witch. That was like the guide. That
That was the
was the
guide.
guide for the witch hunts.
That's right.
And that was a product of technology, the modern technology of the time. So I
That's
don't know
right.
what that means, but I just had to say it.
No, it's so true. I hadn't thought about that. You're absolutely right. Well, I think it raises, I mean, back to the present, technology is being used for good and evil for sure. We're seeing a
Y-
lot of negatives from technology. But the only positive I can see right now, again, I'm tend to be resistant to it, but I see young women who have done research about, for example, the witch hunts and, for example, that great book of midwives and healers, of midwives and nurses. I wish I had it
Mm.
right behind me right now. And they talk about actually the witch hunts were the beginning of modern medicine because
Yes,
they
that
needed,
too.
right?
Yes.
So that I saw a post on Instagram recently, a 20 something woman explaining that book, which was, I believe, written in the 60s.
Which was
Um,
basically like the
yeah,
gaslighting of women's like knowledge of
that's it.
medicine, and like the co-opting and then turning around and being like, well, you dummies. You know,
Exactly. You
even
dummies.
even like
Yes.
Louis Pasteur, it's like that story I learned, right? Like
Yeah.
about how
Right.
he discovered, you know, vaccination. Come on.
I know. I know. I know. It's such a so much gaslighting from the very beginning. And I think actually, now I can bring it back to my book. That's the power
Please
of
do.
writing
Yes.
because we are told stories that we, whatever you want to call it, gaslighting, manipulation, brainwashing, there's so many words for it. And we internalize them and absorb them like that horrible insult from that horrible murderer, and we take it inside. But what happens is all the stuff that we take inside when we write, we pull it out onto the page where we can examine it and think about it and reflect. Do I still want to believe that about myself? This has been my whole life thus far, is examining all the beliefs that I've absorbed without thinking. We don't, I mean, it's unconscious. And then writing makes the unconscious conscious. So then we can decide if we would like to write a different story.
Now, you have a degree in some aspect of this. Please remind me of
Yes.
the title of your degree.
Yes, it's a very esoteric Bay Area degree that actually does not exist anymore. Sadly, it's the university was bought out and they got rid of the program. But that's the degree is in transformative arts, a master's in transformative arts. And what that is the study of creative expression as a tool for self and community transformation. And the arts can be anything. I, of course, latched on to writing, but it can be dance, photography, music, drama, anything.
Interesting that that's for the self and the community.
Yes, it really is. And that's why I do the program I do with groups of girls. So, as you know, as a writer, anyone listening who loves writing, it is a solitary activity. And I do love, once you get into something and you're fully absorbed in it, you don't notice that you're alone. But it's so hard sometimes. First of all, making time to write because we live in such an external push pull world. And then getting yourself to sit still long enough to get into it. And so I find that the most rewarding way of writing is in community. And not just for me, I'm an extrovert, so I love it, but even very shy, otherwise introverted young women love the experience of being in community and share writing together, going in to the process together, and then coming out and sharing it. Because the other thing that happens, to the point that you made earlier, is because we've internalized all these negative stories. Every single girl and woman I've ever written with judges herself and her writing very harshly in the beginning, so harshly that it's almost excruciating to there's a
Mm.
lot of resistance in the beginning, and you
Can
have
you
to
talk
always,
I'm sorry,
yeah.
can you talk a little more about how that manifests, like, how you actually observe that happening?
So, there's more resistance in women than girls, of course, because we have more years of trauma than the young. Not that girls don't have trauma, they just don't have it as
When
much.
you say resistance, like, to the idea that their writing is
Yeah.
worth listening
Yes.
to?
The idea that they have anything to write. That's the
Mm.
biggest thing, and I can't tell you how many times I cry when I'm watching them read because it's so moving to see. I just get emotional just thinking about it. They come in and they say mean things about themselves, and I say, "You know what? This is a space where we're gonna just try to be gentle, try to accept ourselves as we are, and we're only gonna comment on the strengths of the writing, because that's all you need to know about is what's working." And they are, very resistant. A lot of times they have trouble getting started. And that there's a whole way I work around that. But once they write something and it's amazing, it's always amazing. I've never heard anyone write something in any of my classes that didn't inspire me, move me, make me cry, make me laugh, make me feel deeply. It's
Hmm.
always incredible, but everyone always feels that it's not good enough or it's going to be bad. And they don't feel differently until they've read it out loud in community, where the rule in our program is the only rule is everyone shares what they thought was authentic, powerful, or meaningful to them. So what
Mm.
happens is then everyone hears, each person who reads hears from everyone about what they thought was uniquely meaningful. And it's miraculous what what I see happen. The For women, there's tears again because we have more emotions, more baggage. For girls, it's just a transformation of their energy. They suddenly sit up straighter, their heads lift up, their eyes get brighter, there's color in their face, they're smiling, they
Mm.
hold themselves differently because it's somebody showing you that what you have inside of you is important and it matters. And that
I
changes everything.
I'm so feeling the passion that you have for this subject, and I brought up your degree, but partly I brought it up to contrast the fact that you have this very interesting degree, which I didn't know doesn't exist anymore, but you make me wish that it did.
I know.
Um, but in your book, you keep emphasizing not your authority, but your experience as somebody who has felt all of these things that you've been describing, that you went through this yourself
Yes.
and maybe continue to go through it, as we all do. Like, how do we, deal with it? Like you said, we've been dealing with this for thousands of years, so we're likely to deal with it tomorrow too, you know?
Yes. Yeah. And it's probably going to get worse before it gets better, probably. Yes. I think it is the work of my life to process everything through writing and discover things through writing. And I know it's not the only method. I recommend everyone do whatever lights you up, whatever you're drawn to, go that way. I never want to be that person who's saying, you must write. You do not have to write. Only write if you enjoy it. But if you enjoy it even a little, and if you let yourself go a little bit deeper, I think you'll find it's it's your own, I call it magic for lack of a better word. It's your own power and brilliance that will come out of you. And everyone I've ever written with, including myself, is surprised by what comes on the page. I don't know if you've ever
Mm.
had that experience where you may
I've
know what you
been
want to write or
having
not.
it. I've been having
Really?
it because I've been doing this exercise, which I've actually been playing out on this show. I call them stream poems.
Oh,
Maybe you even inspired them. I don't remember, but I started writing them around the time I left Greenville.
huh.
And I just do one page and I start at the top. I might have a prompt, I might not,
Yeah.
but I don't edit. So I have to write a
Hmm.
whole page. That's the only requirement. And I can't cross anything out and I
Oh,
can't go back. I just have to keep going to
I
the
love
end.
that.
And it
I love
has,
that.
like, I'm not saying it's all great art, but it has drawn things out of me that have surprised me with.
Yes.
And
Yes.
let me keep going with that because you talked about magic, that word
Yes.
magic, but I think it's tied to intuition, which is central to your book.
Yeah.
And it's a beautiful book, and it's not really the kind of thing that you just sit and kind of read through from the first page to the last. It's like you can dip into it and get inspiration, and there's exercises. So I think would have to live with this book for a year or two, probably, you
I
know?
love that. I love that.
But you talked about the difference in the amount of brain cells people use with their conscious mind and their unconscious mind. And I did not know that little tidbit, but I think it probably is an important bit of information.
Yes. Okay. So there's a couple parts of it. First of all, 90% of our thoughts are unconscious. Apparently, I didn't come up with this. So that's kind of staggering that, we all think we're aware of what's going on in ourselves and we're really not. That's that idea of the unreliable narrator. However, as we're writing, I do think we become more conscious of things beyond the 10% that we're conscious of. We go into that other 90%. And then I think you're also referring to, I'm fascinated by this statistic from the Princeton Research Lab that the rational brain can process 40 bits of data per second, which is a
Thank you.
lot.
Okay,
That's it.
I misquoted. They were talking about the rational brain.
The
Yep.
rational brain. But the intuition, the
Yeah.
unconscious or the intuitive brain processes 40 million bits of data per second. So that's a million times more information. And in my experience, I tend to, because I'm not a clairvoyant or not exceptional, just winging it with my intuition. It's only when I write that I feel like I draw up that other information.
Mm. And that you feel some confidence, I think, in trusting that information. Isn't that I think
Yeah.
that's something
Yes.
else you get into in the book.
Yes. Okay, so here's a beautiful thing. There's a book called The Goddess versus the Alphabet. I might
Mhm.
actually have it. I do have it actually
Leonard
behind me.
Shlain.
You know it. I think I saw it on
I
your
I
bookshelf.
interviewed there's an interview
Oh,
in my
yes.
archives with
You
that man.
did.
Yes.
My God. Um, he talks about how language has historically been masculine, and anything that is written, going back to the printing press, the Bible, the witch's hammer, all of these things written by men, published by men, it has this automatic authority. Also, language is in the, this is where I often have trouble. It is in the left hemisphere. So I tend to forget words, I think, because I have trouble accessing my left hemisphere sometimes. But when you write, there's two things that happen. When you're writing using words from the left brain about your feelings, you're using your whole brain. And in terms of trusting it, because we live in a very verbal, print-oriented culture, when you read your own words on the page, it gives them authority and also inherently makes them more rational than they seemed when they were just floating in your head.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Wow.
yeah,
That's deep.
it is. I mean, I write stuff so many times that I'm in a bad mood and I don't know why and I don't know what's going on and I'm so lost on a regular basis. And then I write and I don't even know what I'm writing. I'm just sort of spewing. Very much like what you're saying, what you described as that stream of consciousness writing is
Mm.
so powerful because you do tap into something when you don't edit, especially. You're
Right.
100% in that sort of creative, intuitive brain. And so that you're accessing that intuition. And every time I do that, I go back and read it. And it's almost like, who wrote this? I don't even know where
Mm.
it came from. And it
Mm.
almost always answers the problem, answers the question, or sort of provides a solution to the problem that I never would have thought of if I hadn't written about it. Amazing.
Well, we've covered a lot of ground here. But I wanted to ask you, you have this beautiful book called Word Magic, The Power of Writing to Reframe Your Story and Reclaim Your Intuition. I'd like to hear from you if there's something that we haven't talked about that you would like to convey to our listeners about
Oh,
this book.
yes. Okay, that's a really great question. You asked the best questions, by the way. The questions you've asked have taken it so much deeper than I've gotten to talk about it before. Um, I think that I would just like to put a invitation out to everyone who's listening, whether you are very passionate about writing and you write all the time, or you are kind of neutral about it and maybe occasionally, regardless where you are on that spectrum, to trust that if you give yourself even 10 minutes of, I don't know how long you do, you said 30 minutes when you're doing the stream of 30
You know
minutes.
what? No,
Yeah.
sometimes that takes me 5 minutes. Sometimes it takes me a long time to fill that page, and I'm allowed to stop.
Okay. Okay.
And,
That's
and you
really
know,
good.
and sometimes there's this process where I feel like it's these competing thoughts that I can't.
Yeah.
So that in itself is illuminating. But
Yeah.
so sometimes it takes me a while to before I can put another word down, and I try to keep that going because again, I'm trying not to edit either before or after I write it, you know.
That
So
is
the
hard not to
so
edit.
the time it's not the time, it's the page.
It's the page. Well, and I should say that that is related to, oh, it's behind the other book. The Artist Way. I think she was the one who said morning pages. What you're describing is very similar to morning pages. She suggested 3 pages, which I think that's a lot. That takes
Mm,
a lot. I want to emphasize you don't need to spend a lot of time. You don't need to do, I mean, if you can fill a whole page, you're a very advanced writer. So, of course, you can do a page. But if
I
you're
don't know.
feeling at the beginning of like, I may be interested in it, but it sounds daunting, take away the idea, release
2
the,
paragraph.
reframe the
Yeah.
story that it's daunting, and just give yourself time your phone, set your phone for 5 minutes.
Mm,
Because we can all, oh my gosh, the time we spend on social media, you think it's going to be 5 minutes and then it's an hour and you lost an hour of your life.
right.
Um, just time yourself and say, I'm going to stop after 5 minutes and I just have to keep writing nonstop, like you said. Don't edit whatever pops in your head for 5 minutes. And then I think the other part of this is when you finish, read it out loud to yourself, because that's another thing that I've discovered. When we read things on the page, we're in our head, and the head is where the inner critic is. But there's something about the power of the voice coming up, hearing it in through your throat and your eardrums. It has, again, there's like an authority to it and a power to it, and it also feels really good. And I am 99.9% sure that something in that 5 minutes of time is going to come out that's going to amaze you, that you won't even know that you knew it. And if you read it out loud, you'll be able to hear it.
Well, thank you for that. And you have many other writing prompts and exercises in your book. How can our listeners find out more about you, about your book, and possibly purchase it?
Yes, yes. I would love for everyone to visit me on our website, which is, it's 3 words combined into one, intuitivewritingproject.com. And then within the website, intuitivewritingproject.com/book magic is where you can see the book, but you'll see it on the it's all over the website. I have, free intro classes for anyone who wants to try a class, for women or girls. We serve age 11 and up, because I know it's scary. It's so scary at first until you do it. And so we want to get rid of, you don't have to worry about money. Just try it, see if it's a good fit for you, and then you can continue. But the first class is always free.
Thank you so much, Elizabeth. And but I have a couple more questions, and I hope you're prepared to read a little something for
Oh,
us.
yes, yes.
Okay.
Okay.
So if you could just improvise a little on listen and be heard.
Oh, wait, what do you mean improvise? Sorry.
You could take that any way you want.
Oh, okay. I mean, life technically, I guess, is an improvisation. Um, anything, I mean,
Just say anything you want about listening and being heard, or just
oh,
use
okay,
the
that,
phrase in a
yes.
sentence,
Oh,
anything like that.
about yes. Okay, sorry.
That's okay.
I was too much in
It's
my
all
head,
good.
not
It's
in my
all good.
intuition. Okay, so I truly believe, and this has been, again, why it kind of goes back to the original question about why I do this work and why I wrote this book. I truly believe that when we are listened to, truly listened to, you can feel when someone's deeply listening and we feel heard, we are healed in that moment. I think Eckhart Tolle wrote about this. There's some great quote, which I'm not going to remember, but something about there's healing in the process of being heard. And so much of I mean, maybe you could track all of the world's problems and violent conflicts and everything back to people who did not feel heard. I mean, people who commit violence against others are always in pain. Hurt people hurt
Mm,
people. And so, why are they in pain? I mean, there's a million reasons and all kinds of things, but at the very base of it is the experience, the longing to be heard. And it's weird if you think about in our society that it's so rare. That should be the easiest, you're an amazing listener. That should be the baseline of everyone's experience, but it's not. And I remember when I first found you and I found Listen and Be Heard, and I told you this, that is the best name ever. And it's really, I think, what you have created is the recipe for human healing and revolution, which is to give everyone a chance to speak and be heard.
wow. Thank you
Yeah.
for that.
Of
I
course, it's so powerful.
we're in season 4 now, and all through season 3 I was talking about banning books, asking our guests about their experiences, in different states and even different countries with
Yeah.
having books banned. And somehow I'm feeling this need to just be more expansive, to ask about like banning ideas, even. Like
Oh
we're
my
at this
gosh.
point. And so I'd like to know,
Mm.
you're an author, so what's been your experience, yeah, with banning books, but there's a bigger question here that's related to, and it's
Yeah.
become so urgent.
So urgent. It's ironic to me that we fight against and resist the very thing that will heal us and save us. I think about this all the time in the sense of, I mean, I think about it in terms of offering writing classes that I know people will feel, everyone who does a writing class thanks me afterwards and says they feel so much better afterwards. And yet we resist it. And it's the same thing with ideas about our unity. And I do remember this quote because I just heard Eckhart Tolle said this, I heard in a podcast yesterday, that love is the recognition of oneness.
Mm.
Such a great, I've never heard such a great definition of love before. If we could embrace that idea as a society, oh my God, it would change everything. And yet, many people resist that idea. They would rather cling to the idea that we're separate and some are good and some are bad and we have to kill people. It's incomprehensible to me that people don't want the medicine. But then again, I guess we could, if you use that word medicine, that maybe that explains it. They don't want the medicine. They don't want to take the medicine.
Thank you for that. So, what would you like to share with us here in the audio garden today?
Oh, yes. So I just have a very short bit. It's a very lengthy book, so I just wanted to pull a really little bit. Actually, it's just 2 paragraphs. The more we listen to our intuition, the more it will be able to help us. Everything we encounter either gives us energy or depletes it. So it's about choosing the thing that makes you feel stronger, that restores your energy, that makes you feel most alive. Our power is in the present, the moment we commit to loving and trusting ourselves right now, exactly as we are. No matter who you are or what you have experienced, no matter what you have suffered, no matter what you have lost, nothing can change the truth of who you really are, an innocent, creative being, forever worthy of love, care, and thriving. Now more than ever, the world needs us to realize our value and reclaim our intuition, which is the wisdom of our heart.
Thank you so much for that, Elizabeth. Um, but I'm sorry, I've got to ask you for a poem too.
You know my poetry. Okay. Wait, I gotta pull it up. That's great. Um, I do you have a preference or a one that's on top of mind? I don't
No, just you already did that Barbie one, so
The Barbie one.
do
Well, I
something
have
different
one about the witch hunts. Maybe that would be kind
if you
of
want
bring it
to.
all together.
If you want to,
It's got a little bit of um, dark comedy in it.
that's okay.
So, I mean, it's hopefully not too heavy. Okay, let me just pull this up. Okay, now I always
I
have to
think
find my
it's called
writing.
for.
All right. Here we go. Here we go. And here. All right. And it is called Declarations. This is exactly what we were talking about earlier. Okay. There was once a pope who declared himself innocent. Pope Innocent the Eighth. That's 8 of 13, if anyone's counting. Perhaps his very name emboldened him, gave him the zeal for dramatic decrees for no good reason, except perhaps it was 1484. A stressful time, long winter, everyone's starving. And besides, he really hated his mother. Bitches be crazy, he pounded his fist, issuing his pulpal bull, Sumus Deserantis Affectibus, in which he declared that women be witches. Sorry. In which he declared that women be bitches and bitches be witches, and witches will all have to die. The Pope was so excited. He took his dudes to dinner. Kramer and Sprenger were fed the best boar and asked to write something up. They named their book Malleus Maleficarum, The Hammer of the Witches, and it became a runaway bestseller, An Idiot's Guide to Global Femicide. The church invented suffering, but then they had to explain it. Someone would have to be punished, and that someone would be female. And so the church invented evil. And then they added a D and invented the devil. And the devil was a woman and the woman was bad. But evil is backwards for live, life inverted and light denied. We were innocent in the garden till the church cut down the trees and pinned the blame on Eve. Such a clever trick of misdirection. Look over there, it's all her fault. One sleight of hand and they sawed her down the middle. For 300 years, the inquisitors prevailed, and the air was dark with burning flesh. Fear is so persuasive, and the terror was a plague embedded in the blood of all women. Self-doubt, self-loathing, and silent self-destruction. But then time passed. Time fades the lies once inked on paper, and only truth endures. Now it is time to grant our own reprieve, to let ourselves off the hook and down from the pyre. Now we can write our own books and make our own declarations. Now, as before, as always, we are innocent.
Thank you so much, Elizabeth, for sharing your wisdom, your words, your magic, your poetry. We really enjoyed your time here in the audio garden.
Thank you, truly, Martha. It was a great honor. Your work with Listen to Be Heard is so important, truly world-changing, and you are one of the best listeners. So thank you for listening and hearing me.
Wow, I appreciate that. We'll see you again soon.
Okay, thank you.